to dapitan. At this moment, we are going to tackle about the second travel abroad of Jose Rizal in Hong Kong and Macau in the year 1888. On February 3, 1888, after a short stay of 6 months in his beloved Calamba, Rizal left Manila for Hong Kong on board the Zafiro. He didn't get off his ship when it made brief stopover at Amoy on February 7, for 3 reasons. He was not feeling well, it was raining hard, and he heard that the city was dirty. February 8, 1888, he arrived in Hong Kong. Rizal stayed at Victoria Hotel and welcomed by the Filipino residents including Jose Maria Basa, Balbino Mauricio, and Manuel Uriarte. A Spanish assistant de Veranda, who was a former secretary of Governor General Terrero, shadowed Rizal's movement in Hong Kong. It is believed that he was commissioned by the Spanish authorities to spy on Rizal. On February 18, he was accompanied by Baza, boarded the ferry steamer Kyukyang for Macau. He was surprised to see among the passengers a familiar figure since the veranda. In Macau, Rizal and Baza stayed at the home of Don Juan Francisco Licaros. On February 19, he witnessed a Catholic procession, and February 20, Rizal and Baza returned to Hong Kong again on board the ferry steamer Kyukyang. Here's the experiences of Rizal in Hong Kong. First, naisi celebration of the Chinese New Year, to watch Chinese theater, to be with Marathon Laureate Party, to observe the Dominicans in Hong Kong, and the last one, to go to Hong Kong cemeteries. On February 22, 1888, Rizal left Hong Kong on board the Oceanic, an American steamer, and this destination was Japan. And those are the happenings of Rizal in Hong Kong and Macau. At this juncture, we will witness the romantic interlude in Japan of Rizal in the year 1888. On February 28, 1888, early in the morning of Tuesday, Rizal arrived in Yokohama. He registered at the Grand Hotel. The next day, he proceeded to Tokyo and took a room at the Tokyo Hotel, where he stayed from March 2 to 7. He was impressed by the city of Tokyo. After Rizal's arrival in Tokyo, he was visited by his hotel by Juan Perez Caballero, a secretary of Spanish legation. The latter invited him and he accepted for 2 reasons. He could economize his living expenses and he had nothing to hide from the prying eyes of the Spanish authorities. On March 7, Rizal checked out of Tokyo Hotel and lived at the Spanish legation. He and Caballero became good friends. During his first day at Tokyo, Rizal was embarrassed because he did not know the Japanese language, so Rizal decided to study the Japanese language. He also studied the Japanese drama, the kabuki, art, music, and judo. He also visited Meguro, Nikko, Hakone, Miyanohita, and the charming villages of Japan. Romance with Osi-san. One spring afternoon, Rizal saw a pretty Japanese girl walking past the legation gate. A Japanese gardener said to Rizal that it was Siko Usoy. Siko Usoy was mildly amused at the gallant gentleman from the Philippines who spoke in halting Japanese. Rizal saw in love Osi-san the qualities of his ideal womanhood: beauty, charm, modesty, and intelligence. No wonder he fell deeply in love with her. Osi-san reciprocated his affection, for it was the first time for her heart palpitated with joys to see man of gallantry, dignity, courtesy, and versatile talents. Rizal's great love for Osi-san is attested by the hero's diary. With this tragic entry in his own diary, Rizal bade farewell to lovely Osi-san. As everything on earth has to end, the beautiful romance between them inevitably came to a dolorous ending. Sacrificing his personal happiness, Rizal had carried on his libertarian mission on Europe. Voyage across the Pacific. Despite his sorrowful heart, Rizal enjoyed a pleasant trans-Pacific voyage to the United States. Next, the story of Rizal and Tetsuo. Rizal befriended on board the Belgique was Tetsuo, a fighting Japanese journalist, novelist, and champion of human rights who was forced by the Japanese government to leave the country. During their intimate acquaintanceship of almost 8 months, Tetsuo came to admire Rizal, whose patriotism and magnificent talents greatly fascinated him and influenced him. In the year 1889, after his return to Japan, he published his travel diary which contained his impression of Rizal. After publish of his diary, Tetsuo resigned his position as editor of Tokyo newspaper, Choya, and entered politics. In 1890, he was elected as a member of the lower house of the First Imperial Diet, where he carried on his fight for human rights. In 1891, he published a political novel entitled Nankai no Daiharan, or Storm Over the South Sea, which resembled Rizal's No Limit ang Hire in plot. 3 years later, he published another novel entitled O Unabara, or The Big Ocean, which is similar to El Filibusterismo. And those are the happenings of Rizal in Japan.
Good day, everyone. So, this is the continuation of Bentazal's report. Jose Rizal in United States of America. So, Jose Rizal boarded the English vessel Belgic on April 18, 1888. Rizal reached San Francisco on April 28, 1888. So, Jose Rizal described America as a great country, but it has many defects too. They do not have real civil liberty. When he was asked by Jose Alejandro about his impression of the country, he stated America as the land par excellence of freedom but only for the white. They experienced discrimination in America upon arrival, for they weren't allowed to disembark. Chinese passengers were even quarantined much longer on board. Rizal arrived in New York on May 13, 1888. He called New York the big town. So these are Rizal's impression about America. Positive. First is America is a land of great opportunity, especially for immigrants. The second one is it has a huge farms and factories. The third one, it has a natural beauty. Then the last one, it has a high standard of living. So these are the negative Rizal's impression about America. Rizal complained about the racial prejudice of the Americans, which was inconsistent with its principle of liberty, freedom, and democracy. First is a colored man cannot marry a white man. The last one is there were hatred against the Chinese. America is the land par excellence of freedom but only for whites. Jose Rizal in London. On May 25, 1888, Rizal went to London. He stayed as a guest at the home of Dr. Antonio Marigidor. Jose Rizal lived in London from May 1888 to March 1889. He chose it for three reasons. First is to improve his knowledge in English. The second one is to study Dr. Antonio de Morga's book Successos de las Islas Filipinas, which is found in the British Museum. And then the last one is London was safe from the Spaniards. He worked in the British Museum Library, studied, copied, and published Morga's book. By May, he moved to a boarding house owned by the Beckett family. Because he was an excellent linguist, he became good friends with Dr. Reinhold Rost, a Sanskrit scholar, the greatest scholar of the century. He even spent time with him. Rost was impressed with his manners and called him Una Perla de Hombre, or Pearl of a Man. Rizal wrote a lot in London, including the articles in La Solidaridad. So the greatest achievement of Rizal in London was the annotating of Morga's book, Successos de las Islas Filipinas, which was published in Mexico 1609. Rizal spent many days in the reading room of the British Museum, poring over the pages of this book and laboriously reading the old histories of the Philippines. Jose Rizal in Paris, France in the year 1889. So during March 1889, too many tourists in the city. So Jose Rizal stayed with Valentin Ventura. He transferred from different hotels and boarding houses, visited the home of Pardo de Tavera, composed the story of the monkey and the tortoise. He was also fascinated by the Universal Exposition, especially the Eiffel Tower, May 6, 1889. He organized the Kidlat Club with Filipinos who wanted to join the expo. He finalized his copy of Morga's book, which showed evidence that the Filipinos were already civilized before the Spaniards came.
Good day everyone, I'm Hani Joy P. Magnaong. This is the continuation of Chunalin's report in our last topic of the second homecoming and second travel abroad. Jose Rizal and Belgian Brazil's 1890. He planned to establish a college in Hong Kong with the help of Mr. Mariano Cunanan, who promised to help him raise 40,000. Unfortunately, it did not succeed, but when he was exiled and defeated, he was able to establish a boys' school. He wrote again another satire entitled Por Telefono as a reply to Father Salvador Font, his slanderer. He left to Brazil for Belgium because of two reasons impelled Rizal to leave Paris. First reason is because of the cost of living in Paris was very high because of the universal exposition, and the gay social life of the city hampered his literary works, especially the writing of his second novel, El Filibusterismo. He left on Brazil January 28, 1890. Rizal left Paris for Brazil's capital of Belgium. Two reasons impelled Rizal to leave Paris, namely, the cost of living in Paris was very high because of the universal exposition, and the gay social life of the city hampered his literary works, especially the writing of his second novel, El Filibusterismo. His friends, including M.H. Del Pilar and Valentins Ventura, were of the belief that he left because he was running away from a fort just as he left London. Jose Albert accompanied him to Brazil. He also lived with Jose Alejandro. He left Paris because the expensive cost of living, the gay social life hampered his literary works. In Brazil, he made himself busy with sculpturing, shooting, going to gym, writing, and reading articles for the La Solidaridad. Example are A la Defensa, La Verdad para Todos, Vicente Barrentes, Teatro Tagalo, Ona Profanación, Crueldad, Ingratitudes, etc. In life in Brazil, Rizal was accompanied by Jose Albert when he moved to Brazil. So during his sojourn in Brazil, Rizal wrote articles for La Solidaridad in defense of his oppressed people and to point out the evil of Spanish rule in the Philippines. These articles, which appeared in the patriotic periodical, he was criticized by his fellow Filipinos in Madrid for reminding them not to gamble too much for they destroy the nation's reputation. He was even called Pope instead of PP. The gambling Filipinos in Madrid were angry when they learned of Rizal moralizing. This is the letters from Calamba. Calamba agrarian trouble, increasing rents of the hacienda lands by the Dominicans in order from the Dominicans to dispose the Rizal family's lands from them. Persecution of tenants. Paquiano at Antonio Lopez, Silvestre Obaldo were deported to Mindoro. Manuel Hidalgo was banished to Bohol again. These are the latter bad news which Rizal received in Brazil. His heart bled to know that the sorrows plight of about his parents, brother and the Calamba agrarian trouble was getting worse. The management of the Dominican hacienda continually raised the land rents until such time that Rizal's father refused to pay his rent. Other tenants, inspired by Don Francisco's courage, also refused to pay the unreasonable rents. Jose Rizal in Madrid, Spain. Early in August 1890, Rizal arrived in Madrid. He tried all illegal to seek justice for his family in the Calamba tenants, but to no avail. His disappointment built on him until the cross he bore seemed insuperable to carry. There are many problems that attacked Rizal because he arrived on that place. He arrived in Madrid in August 1890, but bad news peeled as he arrived in the country. First, failure to get justice for the family. Calamba was in chaos. Spanish statesmen only contributed words of sympathy. Second, the death of Jose Maria Panganiban. His propaganda Morins in Barcelona due to illness on August 19, 1890. The third is aborted duel with Antonio Lona and Wenceslao Retana. The fourth is infidelity of Leonor Rivera, planning to get married to an Englishman. The fifth is Rizal and Del Pilar's plenary and advocation of leadership and La Solidaridad, leading to divisions of the Filipino community in Madrid. So infinitely of Leonor Rivera, in the autumn of 1890, Rizal was feeling better at so many disappointments he encountered in Madrid. The death of Jose Panganiban, Rizal was deeply mourned the passing of this bical hero. With a sorrowing heart, Rizal talked of his pain and wrote a great eulogy to Panganiban. Failure to get justice for the family, he called on the Minister of Colonies in order to protest the injustice committed by Governor General Valeriano Weller and the Dominicans against Calamba folks. Jose Rizal in Biarritz, France. Rizal wanted to take a rest from the problems he was carrying. He stayed in Biarritz for 1 month. He finished El Filibusterismo here. He retired from the propaganda movement. He wanted to focus on publishing El Fele and his medical profession. He was deciding to settle either in the Philippines, Hong Kong, or Japan because Europe sent a banishment to him due to the conflict in La Solidaridad. The 1 month vacation in Biarritz worked wonders for Rizal. The scenic beaches filled with tourists from all parts of the world. The refreshing breezes of the Atlantic Ocean and the festive atmosphere of the city shared his despondent spirit and made him forget the bitter memories of Madrid. His sorrowing heart began to sing once more with joy, and his healthy flew with remarkable swiftness, writing from Biarritz to Mariano. La Lega Filipina, the most important document, he wrote the Constitution, which has five objectives, namely, first, unite the Filipinos into a homogeneous body, mutual protection in everyone, and necessity defense against all violence and injustice. The third is encouragement of instructions. The fourth is commerce and agriculture among Filipinos. The fifth is study and application of. That was Rizal's second trip abroad.